Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
To everyone. Oh, I listened to a past Dharma talk of mine last night, kind of in preparing for this, and realized I should be watching those. I should be using them I have all these funny little, movements and things. So I'm trying to be a little more still. So the Dharma talk this morning is reading and discussion about a Dharma talk that was given by Ed Browne and is collected in a book of his Dharma talks and recipes, some really nice recipes, in a book called The Most Important Point. And the title of the Dharma talk is The 10,000 Idiots. It is important to remember that we've all gotten to this point in our life honestly. Most of us have simply been making our best effort, and this is where we are.
You gonna read that again?
Sure. This is the little, the couple of sentences after the title and before the body of the Dharma talk. It is important to remember that we've all gotten to this point in our life honestly. Most of us have simply been making our best effort, and this is where we are. I've been practicing Buddhism now for more than 40 years, he says, and sometimes I don't know that I've gotten very far. On those days, for instance, when I'm yelling at things, sponges and dishes. I don't know if any of you ever do that sort of thing, but it feels embarrassing even if no one is watching. A friend of mine said, "Well, that's refreshing because I never thought to yell at things." I always blame myself for my incompetence, and you blame the things for not behaving well enough. It's still embarrassing. The other day I came across a poem that was somewhat encouraging for me, and I'm going to share it with you, thinking that perhaps it will also be encouraging for you. It's a poem by Hafez. It is always a danger to the aspirant on the path when one begins to believe and act as if the 10,000 idiots who so long ruled and lived inside have packed all their bags and skipped town or died. So I'll read that again.
Thank you.
It is always a danger to the aspirant on the path when one begins to believe and act as if the 10,000 idiots who so long ruled and lived inside have all packed their bags and skipped town or died. Ed says, apparently I'm not in that grave a danger. Perhaps you aren't either, but maybe one or two of you are. Anyway, my 10,000 idiots are still around, and every so often I call on them to entertain people. I don't know about you, but I have a very high standards for the kind of behavior that would be acceptable. That means for much of my life, my behavior has not been acceptable. Now I'm in a movie you can see, and the unusual thing is that the movie was probably made about me because I am so less than well behaved. I thought practicing Buddhism meant you eventually gained good behavior, but it hasn't happened yet. I thought that eventually, well, maybe after 40 years, I would be more impeccable. When I mention this to people, they say, "Oh, you mean that you're human?" And I think, oh yeah, I guess so. Is it a good thing to be human? How do you feel about it? Allow me to be your therapist for a moment. How do you feel about this being human business? A lot of things happen for me in the kitchen. The other day, I went to put some leftovers into a small plastic container. I like to save the leftovers, partly inspired by the Zen teaching that you should not waste even a single grain of rice. Treat the food as though it were your eyesight. Is this such a problem? And what happens? The leftover container flips onto the floor. The soup is all over the floor. Do I deserve this? I'm doing spiritual practice here. I'm trying to treat the food really carefully. I'm trying to take care of these things. But what does the universe care? The container flips over. I get angry at the things, and I'm being a good person. Is that good practice? Is it better to get angry at yourself or to be patient with yourself? It's okay, little Eddie. You could have compassion for yourself. A few minutes later, my most beautiful dish is sitting on the counter, and the next thing I know, it just slips off. Well, I might have barely grazed it with my robe or something, but it falls off. And I thought maybe I could save it with my leg, kicking at it. I did manage to hit it twice on its way down. I thought with that kind of cushioning, because I had slowed it halfway down to the floor, it might land on the floor and be okay. But no, it's in 20 pieces, not a break that can be glued. I have many glued things because I figure we've all been broken and we've all been put together. Life breaks us and we put ourselves back together. Buddhism has the idea that Buddha puts us back together, or Kuan Yin puts us back together. You don't necessarily need to do it yourself. Your body-mind heals itself. You have a new body. You have a fresh mind. There is a story about Kannon, the bodhisattva of compassion. The Japanese use the names Kannon or Kanzeon, while the Chinese use the name Kuan Yin, who one day goes to hell to save all the beings there. In the Buddhist cosmology, hell is not endless. So Kannon goes there, intending to guide those in hell out of there. But the beings there are not very trusting. They say, "Lady, we've heard this stuff before." She says, "You could have this great life." Yeah, and credit card debt. What does it take? They don't believe her. It takes a lot of persuading, but finally she gathers up all the people in hell and is leading them out to another realm. Good going. But then she looks back, and more people, great crowds of them, are wandering in, as if though it's a fine place to hang out. They have no idea, not a clue, and she's devastated. She's worked so hard that now it blows her mind. Literally, her head explodes. This time, Amida Buddha gives her another head. Kannon loses her head 10 times before she has a head that can keep it together. So her statue has 11 heads, 11-headed Kannon. She has 11 heads because she endeavored to do impossible things with her good heart, her clear head. Finally, she has a head that can sustain this kind of impossible activity. So maybe there's hope for me. 10 is just a number, like 1,000 or 1 million. In Tibetan Buddhism, they have 10,000 prostrations and 100,000 offerings of various sorts. Maybe I have to break 10,000 salad bowls and spin 100,000 leftover containers of soup, spill 100,000 leftover containers of soup. Eventually, I'll be able to keep it together when this happens. I don't know. That same day, somehow I spilled the coffee, spilled the tea, spilled the water. It's all over the letters and the checks and the bills. Why are these things happening? And this isn't even something important, like health or friends with cancer or children or parents. These are just things. The 10,000 idiots are alive and well. There are various pieces of advice in Zen. One I appreciate comes from the Zen teacher who said that because anger is so devastating and painful for both the person who is angry and those who are the objects of the anger, it is appropriate and important for the practitioner to cut off all traces of anger. But since we're so, sorry to say, human, nobody can do this. So, he says, don't keep it in the forefront. I remind myself of this piece of advice. I don't keep it in the forefront. On the whole, our culture doesn't honor the inner world. It's hard in a culture that doesn't honor the inner world to honor your inner world. And if you're not honoring your inner world, what's becoming of your life? We end up going through the motions and making it look good or right. But is that going to be satisfying and fulfilling? How do we realize and express our good hearts? From time to time, I realize that I'm in the right school. I'm a Zen teacher after all, and who knows not to keep anger in the forefront. I am in the same school as Zen master Yakusan, who said, awkward in 100 ways, clumsy in 1,000, still I go on. I don't know what else to do. The 10,000 idiots remain alive and well. I love reading Ed Browne or listening to Ed Browne because he has, in my opinion, a lovely sense of lightness about his less than perfection, his less than impeccable behavior. And I find that very refreshing, but he also has a very tender heart, which I find very endearing. So I wanted to offer this up to think about our 10,000 idiots and what we do when we, in our practice, how does our practice guide us? Or how do we approach the 10,000 idiots when they arise? Is it something that can offer compassion to ourselves and or to the things? Or is it something that we're continually trying to become impeccable? And like Kanan, our head just explodes. Our head just explodes and we're not able to. So I'd like to open this up to response and questions and comments. Everyone here is such a wonderful teacher, has such a different take on the Dharma. It reminds me of the jewels in the story of Indra's web, where there's infinite facets to each jewel. That seems like an appropriate metaphor to me, to listening to all the people that are gathered and what their wisdom is. So please, if anybody has a response to Ed's talk about 10,000 idiots or anything that's going on. Joan.
Well, one of the idiots is the one that thinks all the idiots can disappear. And that's one of the ones that Ed's having a problem with. And it is one that certainly plagues me. And that idiot brings such despair and sadness and self-hate. And it's just a real sad idiot to live with.
I was dealing with that idiot today, and I didn't know that, I wasn't calling it an idiot or thinking of the 10,000 idiots, but it was this, very familiar kind of mind wandering, and then, why am I doing that, And then finally I got to a point where I thought, well, let me just let that go, not worry about it, let it be if that's what my mind is gonna do, let it wander. And so I found a little bit of peace with that, but it was the idiot that thought that all the other idiots should go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I felt just like sad about it.
Yeah, especially I think for people that have been practicing for a while, in a different way than people that have been practicing for a short period of time. You still get, I think, when you haven't been practicing and had that experience over and over again, when you first begin to have that experience, it's I became angry and like, okay, and blamed myself. I just need to try harder. I'm not doing something right.
Yeah.
I need to try harder. But as time goes on, I become, it's like you said, it's very sad. It's very discouraging at times when I think 40 years, not for me, 40, well, yeah, I would say 40 years for me, off and on. Yeah, that, why am I not impeccable? Yeah, Lori.
So I have a kind of a similar sort of thing, where I have a very critical part, and the critical part is, no, why did you do that, blah, blah, blah. And finally, occasionally, I can, when I'm thinking about it, I guess, I can say, what's going on? What's going on with you? Why are you giving me such a hard time? And we have a conversation. And that'll come through, and then I can say, okay, I know what's going on. This is why, not why I messed up, but this is, I can have a negotiation of, it's really okay, and you're okay. So it's fine. And so then that part just settles down, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop, it's like this critical part is there a lot. And it's, I think it's kind of universal. I mean, it's a lot about, I'm criticizing myself, I criticize other people, but I think I really like to pick on myself a lot. And, but there is, it's nice to know that sometimes it'll go to a place where I'm being kinder, to the one that's so critical.
Yeah, and the advice that he has from the other teacher, don't keep it at the forefront. It's there, we're human, but don't keep it at the forefront. Yeah, Kim, you had something?
Yeah, a lot of it was that I had a situation the other day where I had to create some breakout rooms and my computer went crazy and Windows started opening and closing, going, and then I kind of lost it, personally. And so I wrote something about it too, but I was also talking to Todd about it, and it was a similar thing to what you're saying. Todd said, watch your mind. And it's kind of Ed Browne's ability to write that piece that is, so I was asking, as you were reading, what's the purpose of this practice if we can't be impeccable? And the ability to watch the mind to do this stuff is I guess we'll have to settle for that.
Yeah, we'll have to settle for that. I think that's a good summary of Zen practice. Yeah, and the part that he wrote at the beginning, I mean, we've all gotten here honestly. We're just trying our best, and here we are, you know, and we keep on. Lynn, you have your hand up.
Yeah, no. Shh. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. She's just speak. That's not me, that's her.
It's the puppy. Ah.
Ooh, Bella, I'm sorry. She decided to bark at the neighbors. I was gonna say something similar to what Laurie just said. What I find myself doing, and it isn't often because usually I just let the 10,000 voices, I call them voices, just kind of crush me. But when I can survive it, I will say something like, well, hello, how are you? You haven't been here for a while. Where have you been? What would you like? You know, that kind of conversation with whoever, whatever it was. And it just came while I was waiting because I'm not good at raising my hand. I'm not good at talking in forums like this, as a lot of you know. And so then when I raised my hand and then you went to like three other people, there it was. It was right there. It was up, it was right here. Here's where it was. And it was just this frightening fear of go away, just go away, just go. No, don't go away. I mean, there was just huge conversation going on right there. So, but what I wanted to ask, we laugh at all this because we all do it and we're human. Some of us might do it more than others. And the answer is, the question I have is, why do we do this? And the easy answer is always because we're human. But can we go beyond that? Can it be explained beyond that? Why do we do this?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a million different ways to look at that. Yeah, Joan has a
I think we
response.
have an aspiration. We have an aspiration to be, to come forward as best we can. And I think that's a wonderful thing about humans. And I think it's what gives me hope that I think it's part of another part of being human.
This desire that we have to be impeccable.
Well, or to come forward in a positive way.
Yeah.
And then we can go beyond and be impeccable.
Yeah, after our head explodes
Yeah.
11 times. Yeah, I don't know, there's so many answers to that question. Why? What is there else to say besides we're human? We want to be part of a group and we want to be accepted. And so we want our behavior to lend itself to that, to being accepted. So we look for, how can I do that? How can I be accepted? What's the best me?
And I think there's a more altruistic aspect of, I want to contribute. I want to make things better if I can. And that's, the person that, jumps in and saves the drowning child, just come help.
Yeah.
Can't explain it. It's just.
Yeah, and then I think there's the real classic Buddhist response to that the reason we suffer is because we have this delusion that we're separate. That we're not, we are an individual self that's going to be judged by ourselves and others to be enough or not enough. And seeing it from a more, what I understand as a Buddhist point of view, that we're not separate. We're all part of a process. We're like little nodes in the process, in this undifferentiated tissue. And so the suffering comes when we feel like we're separate and we're not good enough somehow. I'm not sure why that happens. Again, I think there's lots of answers to that question. Why do we experience this feeling of not good enoughness? But it's a wonderful question. It's a wonderful exploration. And I think we've kind of talked about here one of the ways that Appamada encourages responding to that is being curious and being kind. But thank you for the question. That your questions and your voice they're always very appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Joel,
Good morning, Ann.
morning.
Thank you for this wonderful talk. I'm not sure that I've ever heard a more joyous talk, oddly. It has something to do with your voice and knowing how much you have learned from Ed Browne and think about Ed Browne and appreciate Ed Browne and the way in which your voice illuminates his teachings. And I've read chunks of books from Ed Browne and never gotten the same feeling. So that I really appreciate that. I want to ask if you would read the section about Canon going to hell and people saying, yeah, I'm in hell, but if I go back, it won't be any different. You know, like that offer is made. And I'm particularly interested in kind of the frame for how Ed Browne came across that story. I've never heard that before. Would you read that again?
No, I've never heard this story either, but he certainly seems to have some backup with the statue having 11 heads. I don't know that I've ever noticed that. So this is a story about Kannon, the Bodhisattva of compassion. The Japanese use the names Kannon or Kanzeon, while the Chinese use the name Kuan Yin, who one day goes to hell to save all the beings there. In the Buddhist cosmology, hell is not endless. So Kannon goes there intending to guide those in hell out of there. But the beings there are not very trusting. They say, lady, we've heard this stuff before. She says, you can have this great life. Yeah, and credit card debt. What does it take? They don't believe her. Takes a lot of persuading. But finally she gathers up all the people in hell and is leading them out to another realm. Good going. You want me to go on about the head exploding? Or is that?
No need, no need. I was wondering, I was hoping he would say that I had missed something where he says, a friend of mine told me this story that comes from the something or other sutra, you know, but I just wonder if he made that up. That's a
Yeah, it's a good story. Yeah.
story.
He's pretty good with his stories.
I'm really going to think about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to say thank you for this and again, so for the quality of your sharing that is making such a difference for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think because I've been able to listen to Ed in person and listen to his talks that I have a sense of his cadence. So yeah. Rosemarie.
Hi, I think this is one of the funniest talks. I was just hysterical laughing. He's very, very funny. And yeah, one of the things that I'm working with in terms of self-criticism, which is sometimes very subtle, but it's, you know, it's there. And it was a talk that Josh gave about how he, I forget the context, but someone had asked him, like, at a party or something, how are you in the world? And he says, I wonder about things. And that really hit me as a way to cool down when the criticism is the idiot is really having a ball. And I wonder what that was about. If you spill the soup or if you get angry at a friend unnecessarily. Oh, I wonder what that was about. And it just it's been really, really helpful to me. And about the why, Lynn's wonderful question. I think a lot of this, as mammals, I think we need a lot of encouragement. We need a lot of affirmation. And if there's not adequate types and amounts of that growing up, we're going to have different levels of this feeling there's a price we have to pay to be here, to be included. And we keep, trying to do that. I was sewing this morning. I was like doing this the straight back stitch, not the regular one. And it's like, oh, and just noticing, I want to do it well. But I was noticing my body, because when the needle was not really making the stitch in line, I could feel my tension, and I was continually breathing with it and, chanting as well. That was really, really helpful. Just noticing that there's that tension to do it perfectly. So anyway, I offer that. So thank you for this lovely, lovely, lovely talk.
Becky.
Yes, hello and thank you. Yes, the amount of smiling and giggling that included, and I think that's an important for me. Laughing is one of the times that I learn best, because there's a way that our mind is more open while we're laughing.
Yeah.
If it's, and so when it's a healthy, funny thing, it's wonderful to laugh. But one of the things that I think it was Joan might have said, but is that a reason that we are like that in our lives is because we want to be accepted. I think accept is the key word there. Is that if we can't accept ourselves, how can we be accepted? And most of the things that we get into a spin-off with all of the directions that we mean to be going are because of things that have been laid down by the society we live in. And those have been in place for the most part in the kind of social structures we have to make sure that we don't get in touch with our Buddhist nature, because that goes against the powers that be, that goes against the ways that people want to use the earth, that goes against the whole idea of putting ourselves in place to get rich and to be powerful ourselves and so on. So those social things that we're striving toward are also working against us, and are not feeling good about ourselves are definitely that. So I think we should just keep laughing.
Good advice. Good.
And accept ourselves. Accept what is and accept ourselves. And the the root meaning of the sept part of it is receiving.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that was my thought on it. And thank you for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was, oh, Marla. Morning.
I love this. You know me just a little bit, but you know that I love to laugh, and I'm virtually unembarrassable. I didn't always used to be that way, but I have my mother to thank for that because I was never afraid growing up to make a mistake, really afraid, because her first question was always, is anyone hurt? And if the answer was no, no, if anyone is hurt, even if the dog was afraid, was scared, then yeah, someone was hurt. But still, spilling something, breaking something. Usually we laughed. Almost always we laughed unless someone was hurt. And I have sort of maintained that it's varied throughout my life, but I live alone and I laugh a lot. Because I'm pretty clumsy and I make a lot of blunders. And it's a lot easier to get through the day when I'm laughing. At this point in my life, I don't beat myself up anymore. And yet there are times when something goes wrong that I'm very emotional and very upset about it. And there are a few people on here today who this past week helped support me through something. I lost something very, very dear to me, or I thought I did. By the way, friends, I found it. But I was crying. I was very upset. During a meeting, I checked in and I just lost it and cried and said I lost something very, very dear and valuable to me. And that's a time when something went wrong. It was a blunder, it was a mistake, something was missing, and someone was hurt, and it was me. So worrying about others and worrying about myself is when laughter is inappropriate, and it's not supportive of my practice to laugh. But I loved Ed Browne. I just love the humor. That's, I guess it is a little bit rare in Buddhism. But again, I thank my mother in the way I was brought up to not fear making errors unless someone was hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking too, as people were talking about, and going back to Lynn's question and my response about the Buddhist idea that we suffer because we identify as separate beings. We have this delusion that we're separate from everything else. And when those thoughts come up, any thoughts, good thoughts, self-criticism, we attach to them. We make those ourself. We build a self out of those thoughts. And for me, one way, I was doing this last night as I was lying in bed. It always seems to happen late at night in the dark, where I'm remembering things I didn't do, or for whatever reason, things that didn't go well or that I wish were different come to me late at night. And last night I was able to also at the same time, or in response, have the thought, this is not all. This is not all of it. This is a part. This is some of what my life is, some of what life with a capital L is, but it's not all of it. And it doesn't define this being what solely. So that's helpful to me, and I think in line with our teachings of no separate self. So does anybody else have anything that they wanted to add, or if we don't, we could do announcements. I know Lori did that Maybe we can do announcements before we do the last of our service. Yeah, I don't, yeah.
Okay, so, well, one thing, next weekend, on the 9th, Saturday, there's gonna be a work day. The time is 8:30 to
I think it's 9 to 12.
9 to 12, okay. You have to check the calendar to be sure, but we think it's 9 to 12, so, and I think that's gonna largely be, just pulling weeds and neatening up out there. There's a lot of weeds amongst the rocks, so, anyway, that's the first thing, and then, the following weekend, Joe will be offering a one-day sit plus, which will be on the hindrances, and it will be kind of the beginning theme of the practice period. The practice period will officially start on Sunday when we have the entrance ceremony for Sandra as head student. So that's really exciting. And then from that, she'll be giving several talks, 3 talks, offering a class, the Intro to Zen, and she'll be offering tea. So be aware of that. She'll send out an announcement on that, and I encourage you to spend some time. Sandra's a delight to be with, and so spend some time with her over tea. I presume it's going to be on Zoom. I'm not sure, but since she's in San Antonio, I doubt that she'll be running up here to visit with folks, but I could be wrong. And then April, of course, will be the intensive with Peg and Flint regarding forms and roles. That will be, Peg's coming into town on the, is it the 29th or the 30th?
I think the 30th, 10:30.
Okay, it's the 30th, that's at night, right? 10:30 at night?
No,
Oh,
morning.
10, okay, in the morning. And so she'll be here then, and then the actual intensive will start on the 1st and we'll go through the 6th.
No, it's starting on the 31st.
Oh, it's starting on the
Sunday night.
31st.
In the
Oh, that's
evening.
right. Okay, 7 to 9 on Thursday night, and we'll go through the 6th. And that will be an integrated intensive, is what I understand. And then we'll have a little bit of a break, and then we'll have, in June, there'll be another intensive that I'll be leading, and it'll be the last week of the practice period, and we'll end with the exiting ceremony with Sandra for the head student. So you gotta come to that. That'll be really exciting. That'll be on the Sunday, the 23rd, I believe, of June, when she answers questions offered by Sangha members. That's always exciting. Ceremony. It'll be on the Sunday, and then mine will be also an integrative, and I think it starts on the Tuesday, the 18th. So that's about all I know.
No,
Oh, the
23rd.
23rd. The 23rd, we're also having a work day, and that will probably be getting gravel and moving it around the rocks, so everything's covered. What?
2 more things. The precept class, which starts next week.
On the 14th.
No, the precept is on Sunday. Is it the 14th? Oh, yes, yes.
The
you're right.
14th. Yes, it's the 14th. Okay, yeah, and what else?
The sale.
Yeah,
Don't know about
there is a garage sale coming up. We plan to do that on the 13th of April, but that's still in the planning stages. So stay tuned for that. And this is a lot of information, and it's all on the calendar.
Yeah, and the garage sale is gonna include the book sale, right? Or is it separate?
It'll be part of it.
Okay, so we'll have some books from here. I don't know what they'll be. They'll be kind of odds and ends, I think, not necessarily Zen books, but anyway, so there'll be both books and then other items that have been left behind that are, anyway, gonna be up for sale. But that would probably be just on, for the people here, rather than we won't be sending things out across the country.
Right.
So that's.
No bidding.
Yeah. So I think that that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this this next Saturday, Austin time, either 8 or 9
I think
to
it's
12.
8 to 11, I think, actually.
That you might think about going outside, knowing that some of your Sangha members are outside working in the soil and the air and the sun, and just enjoying that with us. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for your comments and your teaching.